Hello everyone, hope all is well. Before we get into the mechanics, I want to talk about market context. Because the right answer to equity or debt actually shifts depending on where we are in the funding cycle. And this is something a lot of founders miss. In a robust funding environment, lots of dry powder, VCs competing for deals, equity is abundant and valuations trend upward. Raising a round in that environment is relatively founder friendly. But when capital gets constrained, which we've seen happen more than once over the last several years, valuation multiples contract, and founders suddenly face a much harder choice. In that constrained environment, you're often looking at a down round or a flat round if you go the equity route, neither of which feels good, and both of which can spook your cap table. This is exactly the environment where venture debt becomes a strategic bridge. Instead of accepting a valuation you don't believe reflects your company's real worth, you can use debt to buy yourself 6, 9, sometimes 12 months to hit the metrics that justify a much better price later. The founders who come out ahead aren't the ones who panic in a down market. They're the ones who understand these tools well enough to use them proactively instead of reactively. That's really the whole thesis of today's session. So as we go through the rest of this, keep asking yourself, where is my company right now? And where is the broader market right now? Because the right structure for you today might be completely different 6 months from now. Let's start with why founders choose equity in the first place. Because it's easy to villainize dilution. But equity exists for very good reasons. First, no repayment obligation. When you raise equity, there are no monthly cash outflows for principal or interest. Every dollar you raise can go straight into growth. That might sound obvious, but when you're pre-revenue or burning cash to find product market fit, that breathing room is priceless. Second, patient capital. Good VCs understand J-curve economics. They expect years of unprofitability before scale. And critically, there's no maturity date forcing your hand. Third, strategic value add. This is the one founders underweight the most. A great investor isn't just a check. They bring board level guidance. They open doors to enterprise customers or key hires. And frankly, having a recognizable name on your cap table sends a signal to the market that de-risks your next round. And fourth, risk mitigation. This is the flip side of dilution that nobody talks about enough. If your company fails, you owe nothing back. The downside risk sits entirely with your investors. That's a real transfer of risk off your balance sheet, and it's worth something. I'll give you a real example here. I worked with a climate tech founder building hardware for grid storage, genuinely brilliant technology, but an 18-month R&D runway before they'd even have a sellable product. There was no version of that story that worked with debt. No lender would touch it, and honestly, no lender should have. That business needed patient equity capital from investors who understood deep tech timelines, and that's exactly what allowed them to survive 2 rounds of R&D setbacks without the company dying.